necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, now we will begin with the Daily Trust newspaper on Daily's On Daybreak today, this morning. And some of the stories are quite interesting. The lead story talks about Auditor General uncovers multi-billion naira fraud in National Assembly. The story has the riders, 3 billion naira in Senate, 5.5 billion in House of Assembly. That's the House of Representatives. It's shocking. Lawmakers are breaking laws. That's according to Rafsanjani. There now below that, you would see also lack of trust, major challenge in COVID-19 vaccination. That's according to the Sultan. You'll find that on page 5. Then Tiamin's 18 billion naira rice farm in Bauchi to employ 1,000 youths. Insecurity, Bichi Emirate holds special prayer today. And then you see also why we gave Buhari's son title, Emir of Daura. Other stories there at the top. Gunmen kill father, 2 sons in Benue. And that's on page 63 of Daily Trust. The next story, why APC should postpone February convention. That's according to Kalu. Explain sources of your wealth. Adebanjo tells Akonde and Tinubu. These are the stories that made the headlines on Daily Trust today. Quite rich. You will want to pick a copy of the paper to have a glance of what is really going on.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. The lead story there, AGF writes Buhari says mandatory direct primaries will cause confusion. The writers there, Malami's office sent its position 2 weeks ago, says Minister of Justice source. Another writer states constitutions of parties stipulate direct or indirect amendment will be difficult. You'll see on page 2 of the Punch newspaper, Buhari snubs calls to visit North, jets out to Turkey with wife, 7 ministers. This has generated quite a lot of, controversies and outcry from Nigerians, and you find details of that story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. On page 29, you'd see NJC sanctions 3 judges for conflicting rulings, 1 on watch list. On page 19, you'd see FAN suspends workers as car confronts landing plane on Lagos airport runway. Oh, that's quite tragic. And on page 26, federal government warns Nigerians as COVID-19 cases rise by 630% in 10 days. Insecurity threatens 2023 polls, says Jega. VP inaugurates Ajimobi Center. And still on the Punch newspaper, right on page 19, you'd see governors vow to review federal government's proposed privatization of 10 power plants. You'd also find on page 9, salary deductions, fighting monarchs cost you election, not rigging. Oyilola replies Akande. And on page 4 and page 5 of the Punch newspaper, hoodlum arrested for kidnapping Ondo female worshippers during vigil, others held. That's quite tragic. This is going to, put a lot of scare in people going for night vigils in churches. And on page 23, you see Bakers Association storms Lagos Assembly, decries harsh policies. These are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at The Guardian today. Here we have some of the stories, raising some concerns, really. Like the lead story says, concerns as hope deems for amended electoral bill. And the writer says, Buhari departs Abuja for Turkey Africa Summit, returns on deadline day. Lawmakers proceed on Yuletide recess, Turkey trip, stalls National Assembly leaders, last effort to save amended bill. Fate of Ekiti, Oshun governorship polls hangs over stalemate. And then you would see also below the pictorial, Nigeria at war, SBM report reveals. The story has the following riders: 964 security agents, 3,071 non-state actors killed in 1 year. Nigeria, a failed state at war. Northern Elders Middle Belt Forum slam Buhari. At the very bottom, you see Adebanjo, George, allege Akonde on mission to cause disunity. And then you see also at the top there, NHIS canvasses 1 kobo per second telecoms charge for health coverage of vulnerable Nigerians. Lagos indebted to retirees by over 30 billion naira, says pensioners chair. Also, Emir decries 50% of land taken over by terrorists, warns of food crisis. Court orders arrest of Imo deputy speaker over alleged 75 million naira fraud. These are the lead story. So yes, the lead story quite worrying, really, when you look at what is really going on. It's just barely, I mean, the assent to the electoral bill is almost, by the president, is about to I would say elapse.
Sunday.
Yes, and we're not sure what's going to happen. The National Assembly, yes, the lawmakers have the power to veto the decision of the president, but whether or not they will do that, that's entirely a different conversation, especially if you consider the fact that they are going on a recess. So what happens, to that? Well, let's see. We'll get perspectives on that much more on the program. Let's take a look at other papers.
Okay, let's take a look at one more paper before we review some of these stories on these dailies today. Now, the Nation newspaper leads with a story: conflicting orders. NJC bars 3 judges from promotion. And the writer there, Justices Bassam Umar, Confrere affected. And you'd find on page 5 of the Nation newspaper, don't back any presidential aspirant, PDP bot tells IU. And on page 2, you'd see Lawan, Baja, governors, others greet Buhari at 79. And on page 6 and page 28 of the Nation newspaper, UK resumes visa application proceeding. It also see Access Bank shareholders approve holdco. So these are some of the lead stories of the Nation newspaper.
All right, well, we have in the studio Nuruddin Abdallah, editor 21st Century Chronicle, in the studio to give us perspectives on this stories. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much.
Well, very interesting stories. Let's begin with the lead story on the Daily Trust, talking about the, uncovering of, billions of naira, is a fraud in the National Assembly. Are you surprised by this?
No, not really. If you analyze the history of the National Assembly, particularly from 1999, you understand? Only that the reports, every three years the Auditor General releases a report or submits a report. You understand? This to 2019. You understand? The one that has been around was that of 2016. So it's not surprising because the Auditor General's report confirms what many Nigerians, particularly the civil society organizations, NGOs, have been saying, that the National Assembly is opaque. Their finances are not, the way they expend their finances are not in the transparent way. Should be in line with Buhari's administration. And basically, if you look at the report center on mostly one thing: procurement of vehicles for the lawmakers. If you look at most of the monies were expended during 2019, this assembly came on board June 2019, you understand? The late assembly. And immediately, when they come, it's about allowances, furniture allowances, and vehicles. If you look at the report, about 1.7 billion was expended. And when the auditors went there, the vouchers were not even made available to them. That has been the practice in the National Assembly. But unfortunately, again, this is the same National Assembly that is crying or invoking fire and brimstone over some agencies. You understand? Asking in the past, there are even instances where the National Assembly directed the president to sack one head of agency or the other. During the Jonathan time, the prominent one was that of Oruma Ete of the Security and Exchange Commission. So that is the, in Hausa we call it somebody who is on guard, then he was caught dozing. But with this, the National Assembly should come clean. Why are they not allowing their books to be scrutinized by the auditors?
So with this, coming on the surface, what does this really say, about them? Will there still be that confidence, by the people in them?
Over the years, the confidence Nigerians have from the National Assembly has been eroded in the most horrific way. Just last week, the Senate President is saying they are one of the least paid in the country. But that's not all true. Yes, if you look at with the dollar now going up to maybe 700 or so, but compare what they earn with the GDP per capita. The National Assembly, what is the percentage of what they earn of the GDP? This story was done long ago. The economy started it some years back, where our own was almost more than 50% or so. Whereas if you take UK, Canada, and our state, just 2.something% of the GDP. So if you share the GDP per capita, you understand that they are taking a lot.
All right, now if you juxtapose this, this is happening barely a few weeks when the ICPC also raised alarm that there were about 20 billion naira repeated projects in the 2021 budget, and a lot of issues about corruption in the civil service, recruitment without any due process. How positioned is the National Assembly to play that role of checks and balance, especially when it has such issues?
It's very difficult, to achieve that, because remember how many props do we have in the last maybe 6 years? Dozens of them. Where are the reports? When Obasanjo left office, you remember the Elumelu prop panel on power? That 16 trillion or so was wasted. Who is held accountable? There is nobody that was held accountable because of that. The subsidy prop. There are all manner of props. The National Assembly will do it. It will carry. Just look at it. You remember, the lawmaker from Kano is in jail over that subsidy prop. Remember, because he wanted to obtain bribes to doctor the report. So Nigerians, even though if the National Assembly spent about 150 billion out of the over 10 trillion national budget. If you look at the percentage and if you look at it's not much. But the problem is oversight function. Just take constituency projects. That's what the ICPC is saying. The good guys among the lawmakers are those who will go and do boreholes in their private farms, who will do roads in their private farms, but the others will just pocket the money. But unfortunately, before the Buhari administration came on board, this has been a recurring dismal. We thought that maybe when he came, but unfortunately, based on what ICPC is saying, it is almost doubling or even tripling.
Okay. So do you think like a form of reformation is possible in Nigeria?
Pardon?
Do you think like a form of reformation is going to be possible in Nigeria?
Yes, it's possible, but our leadership selection process has to change. Then, no matter how good you are, if you don't have money, if the godfather from your constituency doesn't endorse you, you can get elected. So stooges or political power blocks are being sent to the National Assembly. You understand? I know someone in Kaduna, he was denied ticket because he said that in Hausa, Turanci Shiyaya. What it means is that, you know, he is too educated to be controlled. So that's the problem. So most of these power brokers, they prefer people who are lowly educated, who can't challenge them. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, man. So that is it.
All right. Now, you know, when we look at other papers, like The Guardian also is leading with the story about the electoral amendment, you know. So if you talk about, you know, the process of our electioneering needs to change, one instrument that will make that happen is the electoral amendment. And now, you know, that bill has been sent to the president, and the president is nowhere to sign the bill. And so what do we even expect, you know, going forward? The day is going to elapse by Sunday.
The president is a politician, first and foremost. He contested the election and won twice. So when it comes to electoral act, that is the first thing he considered. And, you know, since the National Assembly actually are the promoters of this, there are two things, basically. Or one thing even, not even the transmission, electronic transmission, that has been dealt with. And it has been exemplified in some off-season elections that we had recently, that of Anambra, for instance. But the most contentious issue now is that of primaries, direct or indirect. My thinking is this: political parties should be allowed to decide which model they pick, because you are overburdening the INEC.
Isn't it the current arrangement as we have it right now?
No, it's delegate arrangement, fewer numbers. But now, if, for instance, the president assent to the bill as proposed by the National Assembly, it means that in Hausa we will do what they call Kato buying Kato. And that mode was the one that almost crippled CPC in 2011. It is still an opportunity. What that simply means is you spend more money. Instead of dealing with fewer delegates, now you will deal with large an army of
yes,
people.
but isn't our democracy the better for it? You know, if you look at, you know, the issue about the indirect primaries that we have right now, as to this issue about, you know, people just buying, you know, their way into, you know, representing parties and all of that.
Indirect primaries, as they are conversing now, Mike, it's not a magic one to the problem we have at hand. Look at based on experience, CPC did it. What did they end up with? Confusion. And Mike, look at even, can I call them maybe greater democracies? In the United States, they're even doing collegiate elections. So the number of people who will tackle insecurity in the country, and what if you, and still money backs are the same people that will send buses and load people and give them maybe 1,000. If delegates, for instance, are getting 50K, now maybe the thing will be democratized. The bribe will be democratized.
Yeah, so isn't it what the direct primary is, you know, set out to change? You know, looking at the fact that if you are dealing with a larger number of people, it's much more difficult to try to, you know, buy their votes and all of that. So you do not share that thought that, you know, maybe the direct primaries is the way to go?
I don't think so, because INEC will supervise. how many, if you are doing it at the ward level, how many thousands of votes do you have across the country? INEC official will be there. Look at the finances. Look at the security. Look at even the logistics. My thinking is, even the National Assembly members that are trying to push this thing, they are not doing it because of you and me. They are doing it because most of them they are not in good time with their governors. Some of them, by 2023, they want to contest as governors. Some want to return back to the National Assembly. But their governors, maybe they have told them, no. So that's it. Even at that, the governor still has an upper hand. Mind you, he's sitting on top of a public purse. If you're a senator or you're a minister, to bribe those thousands of people or even millions of people, you have to get money maybe from your pocket.
So I say neither the direct or indirect is what we are supposed to be adopting right now.
I don't think, if, for instance, the status quo will be preserved, I think, because one, you are dragging INEC into a more confusing and painstaking.
Yeah, but INEC is not saying that they have a problem with that.
Yeah, INEC may not say it, but we know they do. Normal elections, for instance, how many ad hocs do they pick? Do they take? If you are doing direct primaries across the country, how many ad hoc staff will take? Where will they get the money? So that's my thinking.
So how do we sanitize the electoral process if the issues of whether direct or indirect primaries is not really the problem? Where lies the problem?
Like I said, it's not even about political parties themselves. What's the difference? Zainab may be in PDP today. If she can't get what she wants, tomorrow you will see her in APC, and vice versa. Tell me the manifesto of PDP or the manifesto of APC. Unlike what we have, for instance, in the US, there are certain things applicable to Democratic Party. There are certain things applicable to Republican Party. But here there is no such things. Electronic voting is a one-way of sanitizing the system. But the way they are trying to do it now, we will end up maybe with what we had during the Obasanjo third time. The electoral act was amended, but because of that single issue, the whole system was thrown away. They throw the baby with the bath water. The most important thing now is the electorate must be sensitized to know their rights. What is that right? Holding their representative accountable. How will they do that? If you are a local government chairman, for instance, we know how much you get every month from the federation account. We have the power to know how much IGR you and what you utilize it for. And they should be held to account. That is the first stage forward. But what we have now is you will have a governor that he thinks that he's doing a favor. He does a culvert, which can be done maybe at 200,000, and he does it at 10 million.
So, okay, now, but are you concerned about the likely constitutional crisis that we could, have as a result of, the president possibly not signing that act before it elapses on Sunday? And if he is to do that after it elapses, what's the implication of that, for our constitution?
From experience, the National Assembly will not veto the president. It has never happened. That's it. What they did was intense lobbying. The Attorney General, there was a report today that the Attorney General, who is the chief judicial officer of the president, has written his position to the president. And the president will be mostly guided by that, because they have to look at the pros and cons. As president, you can't just assent to anything. You have to look at even the financial implication. You have to look at the even security implication. Southeast, go to Zamfara, what if you some of the local government are under the control of bandits, and you are saying that you will do direct primaries. You are creating a platform for anarchy. You understand? So that is it. So the way the National Assembly will not veto the president. No.
Is that in the interest of Nigerians? Is that in the interest of Nigerians, really? You know, because that's what we are all about here.
What I'm saying here is this. Indirect primaries, is it in the overall interest of Nigerians? No. It is in the overall interest of senators, House representative members.
Yes, but we cannot conclusively say that. We cannot, you know, like...
That is my understanding. So if the president... There are more germane issues that they should have vetoed the president, but they never did. So the president will just send it back, and you'll see. And nothing will happen. And I think this is the first time that that they send it to the president. So there should be back and forth.
But doesn't that undermine, you know, their power as a National Assembly?
The same National Assembly that uncover multi-billion naira fraud. The same National Assembly that they are withholding vital financial documents to the auditors. So that is it. The same National Assembly members that are pocketing billions in the names of constituency projects. I read a story just recently. A member parked motorcycles and motor in one store for more than 5 years. He refused to share it. Constituency project, the corruption there, the regime of trillions, as revealed by the ICPC.
Okay, let's take a look at, you know, other stories on the paper, just like this one on the Punch newspaper on page 2. That states Buhari stops calls to visit North, jets out to Turkey with wife and 7 ministers. We've seen so much outcry by people saying the country is on fire and the president is jetting out.
Yes. I have a very different perspective to this. As Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he's the number one in line to safeguard our lives and our property. That is it. And he does that by representation. Right. That is why he has a cabinet. That is why he has service chiefs. You understand? Who represent him in doing this. People make, you know, sometimes they become more emotional because they want the president in Borno and what have you. Yeah, some of his predecessors did that. You remember during the Ikeja bomb blast, the early days of Obasanjo's presidency, Obasanjo was there. You remember? But he just played to the gallery. Yes. The issue is simple. Ensure that you put mechanism on place that such things don't happen. During the Jonathan's time, Jonathan was in Maiduguri, you remember? He visited some of the places. But now maybe they say that Buhari should go to Sokoto and
yeah, but you know how? Yes, how? I mean, if you look at, you know, the votes of the president, you know, largely came from the northern part of the region, northern region of the country, and now some are saying that isn't it, you know, put on the president some moral obligation to, you know, visit these communities for the purpose of reassuring them, for the purpose of confidence building in the president and all of that. Isn't it as important as these trips that the president is embarking upon? Or perhaps even more important? It
wouldn't be all correct to compare the trips, whatever that means. It's Africa, Turkey-Africa partnership, you know. Even a country like Turkey is dealing with Africa as a country. You can see how that's another thing entirely different. But you don't compare the two. Do you know why? It is not the visit. People should not emphasize on the visit. What is the president doing to forestall the recurrence of such calamities? For every incident, I think, I am not a security personnel, but I think that there should be some sort of investigation. What happened? Is there negligence or not? You remember the Benghazi attack There was probe. That will almost cost Hillary Clinton the presidency. People should be punished. People should be sanctioned.
So is that happening right now?
It is not happening, but you should not since this is the fundamental that the president should do. But you can't say since the president cannot sack a police chief who allows bandits to be on the prowl, or he cannot sack a military commander who's out of sheer negligence, operational incompetence, and what if you allowed subject the lives of people into harm's way. That shouldn't visitation shouldn't replace this. The president, the fundamental essence of government is protection of lives and property.
So some will argue that that's the least that the president can do. I mean, if we are not seeing the sacking of people that are supposed to be responsible for safeguarding the lives of people, the least expected from the president, in the opinion of many, is at least visit these local communities, especially where there are serious cases of these attacks. The last one in Sokoto where about 40 people were burnt, and all of that. So those are the grievances.
Yes, like I said, I don't share these grievances of people. I don't want president to just exchange his fundamental function as protection of lives and property with visitations. See, if the president is going to Sokoto, the president is not a governor. There should be an entire presidential movement. Sokoto that day will be locked down. Yes. And do you know what even it cost the publics? Recently there were about attacks along the Kaduna-Abuja highway almost 5 times. Dozens abducted with some even fatalities and what have you. So we are expecting the president to visit Kaduna maybe 5 times. No. What we should tell the president is, Mr. President, people are dying.
Because of the statements being issued by the presidency, the Minister of Information and Culture to issuing certain statements, the statements are not quite encouraging. And maybe, could you think maybe that is why people are, furious about the whole travel?
They are playing to the gallery. You understand? The fundamental thing is to stop these attacks from happening. How the president does it as the commander-in-chief is best known to him. What if the essence people are roasted, maybe 40 people are roasted also, and the president will come and be crying? By the time he returns to Abuja, the bandit campaign will do another attack, then he will return? No.
So what should the people look
the
up
president,
to?
What Nigerians should tell the president is, you have service chiefs. Give them targets. If attack XYZ happen, you are losing your job. We heard of the story of during the IBP regime. If a sort of a police chief, an IG, visited him. So when Lawrence Aneni was wreaking havoc in the south. So when he came, he said, "Where is Aneni?" The police chief went back, and less than 2 weeks, Aneni was arrested.
So are we about to head back to the initial conversation about sack the service chiefs again? Because one will think that, okay, are we really seeing any results, and whether or not changing the service chiefs will actually give us the desired results?
It will.
Going by what we just what we are experiencing at the moment.
It will. Government should be run as a business. Government service chiefs or whatever shouldn't be like traditional institution. Even emirs and chiefs now have been sacked. But when you hold service chiefs for more than 4 years, 5 years, they become more comfortable. Mr. Ayuba, just look at it. If you know, as a commissioner of police, let's say in Nasarawa or Kogi or Niger, and there is an incident, and if you look, most of these incidents, police have prior knowledge. They got intelligence. They have informants that tell them, okay, so thing. But they stay back.
Could it be that they are helpless, even the service chief? Could it be that they are helpless in the sense that if you look at what they have, the manpower that they have to work with, and the hardware that, in terms of arms that they have, whether or not that is sufficient to, enable them perform their functions?
Going by the budgetary figures in the last 6 years, monies for hardware, military hardware and equipment is not a problem. Look at the 2022 proposed budget. Look at what is going to the defense. It's not a problem.
So what really is the problem?
The problem is some people have been appointed and they believe that it's their birthright to be there, whether they work or they don't. And they believe that whatever happens, they are not going to be sacked. Government should be run like a business. If you are a bank manager, you have a target. If you can't meet your target, you don't need to be fired. You don't need to be there to be fired. But you know that your responsibility is to stop XYZ, and you are not doing it, and you know nothing will happen. There is no consequence. So it is not about visitation. The people will not be any happier when they see the president's face. Tell me that, okay, the police team has been sacked. Whoever is coming as active whatever will sit up and will put his best. But when you know that your responsibility is to protect this place, but out of negligence or what have you, you refuse to do it. And there are attacks, and lots of lives have been lost. Property worth billions has been lost. And you know there won't be consequence. Why can't you just relax? So that's the problem. I don't want, how many visitations will the president make across the country?
We do hope, the whole security situation in the country
improves.
Is brought to an end, because really people are dying, on a daily basis.
So it is not, you should stop those killings.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspectives with us on the program. We look forward to having you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, we've been speaking with editor, 21st Century Chronicle, Nuruddin Abdullah, and he's our newspaper reviewer for the day. We'll take a short break now, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at other discussions on the program. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that